Battle through the firmament. Great world. Chapter 446. Arriving at the top of the mountain. At this moment, the top of the mountain was filled with a hubbub of voices. Old Man Chang, who had been sitting cross-legged in silence for nearly 2 months, finally stood up in front of everyone's fervent gazes. "Io, this old man has an old arm and a waist. I can't sit still any longer." The moment he stood up, the old man's legs suddenly turned soft, and he almost fell to the ground. This caused everyone's hearts to suddenly jump. This old man's performance over the past few days had made everyone feel that he was mysterious and unfathomable, and they had never imagined that he would show such a reaction. "4 leaders, bring your students here." Ignoring the complicated expressions of the others, Old Man Chang looked at Su Jiang and the other 3, pointed at the empty space in front of him, and said with a smile. Su Jiang had a calm expression on his face. When he heard this, he walked straight towards the old man. The Yunlo Academy's result this time had greatly exceeded his expectations. He was already very satisfied with this result. Yi Xuan, who was standing at the side, let out a bitter laugh. Her charming face revealed a trace of seriousness. Behind her, there were only 2 students, Xuan Qingyi and Kiara. At this moment, Xuan Qingyi's injuries were very serious, and with Kiara's help, she was doing her best to recover. Sighing lightly, Yi Xuan's beautiful eyes turned to look at Su Jiang with a complicated expression. The Yunlo Academy's result this time was really too proud. As for the Glaze Academy, other than Kiara, no one else had ever fought before. Xuan Qingyi and Shang Shaoshan of the Star Sky Academy had also gone through a great battle, but they were still unable to determine the victor. The 2 heavenly beasts who were watching the battle had no choice but to come forward and report to Old Man Chang. After discussing with a few elders, both of them arrived at the top of the mountain. Otherwise, it was likely that Kiara would be the only one in Glaze Academy this time. Southern Sky Academy also failed this time. While Yi Xuan was secretly sighing, Tang Hong came to her side. There was a trace of worry on his usually smiling face. Next to him was Zhou Buyi and Zhou Exingyu. Didn't Lei Yunting not come up yet? His opponent should be that student called Xiaoyan from the Yunlo Academy. With Lei Yunting's ability, it shouldn't be difficult for him to win. Yi Xuan glanced at Zhou Buyi and Zhou Exingyu, paused for a moment on Zhou Exingyu's body and said, "Even if he wins, he won't be a match for the Star Sky Academy." Hearing this, Tang Hong shook his head helplessly. The Star Sky Academy's side was much stronger than the other 3 academies. "Let's take it one step at a time. If we really can't do it, it doesn't matter if the 3 academies join forces. We can't allow the Star Sky Academy to dominate the entire sect." A trace of anger could be faintly seen in Yi Xuan's beautiful eyes. Her cold voice rang in Tang Hong's ears. "Join forces." Upon hearing this, Tang Hong could only smile bitterly. In the last great battles of the past, in order to resist the Star Sky Academy, they did not join forces at that time. But in the end, because of the distrust between the students of the 3 academies, they were defeated by the experts of the Star Sky Academy one by one. "Everyone is here, right?" Under the gazes of the surrounding people, Old Man Chang narrowed his eyes and looked at the few people in front of him, and said in a soft voice, "Xiaoyan from the Yunlo Academy and Lei Yunting from the Southern Sky Academy have yet to come to a conclusion." Old Man Chang nodded his head. His eyes swept across all the students in front of him. When he saw Zhou Exingyu, his eyebrows twitched, but his expression did not change. He continued to look. His eyes swept across Kang Feng, who was standing behind Xing Chanyu. Old Man Chang's indifferent expression finally changed slightly. From Kang Feng's body, it seemed like he had suddenly developed a violent emotion. With a thought, he forcefully eliminated this feeling. A look of shock appeared in Old Man Chang's eyes. With his cultivation base and experience, few people could affect his emotions. How could this young man, who seemed like he didn't care about anything, have such an ability? Zhu Mo, who had been paying attention to Old Man Chang's expression, saw this and looked over. He deeply remembered Kang Feng's appearance in his mind. There must be something extraordinary about this young man who could move Kang Feng. Lei Yunting. He must be a genius of the Thundercloud clan in the star field. I heard that he has cultivated the lightning controlling technique of the Thundercloud clan a long time ago. He is very familiar with the lightning origin key. Since this Xiaoyan's surname is Xiao, there is a high chance that he has something to do with the Xiao clan. This is great. The Thundercloud clan has always wanted to replace the Xiao clan as one of the 4 major families. I don't think they will hold back against this Xiaoyan. Zhu Mo narrowed his eyes and muttered softly to Zhou Yuan, who was standing beside him. Xiao clan. Upon hearing this, Zhou Yuan was slightly shocked. He had never thought that Xiaoyan would have a connection with the Xiao clan. After hearing Zhu Mo's analysis, it was quite possible. Originally, the most outstanding generation in the Xiao clan should be Xiao Yi. For some reason, he didn't participate. This Xiaoyan had never heard of him before, but he had also come to participate in the 4 academies competition. This had nothing to do with the Xiao clan. How could a mere monarch emperor come here? Zhu Mo chuckled and said disapprovingly. Zhou Yuan nodded silently. He didn't say anything, but his heart was filled with waves. Xiaoyan, I would like to see how strong you have become. Although Lei Yunting is powerful, if it was you, you should be able to win. As he thought about it, the corner of Zhou Yuan's mouth slowly formed an inexplicable smile. He calmed his heart and no longer looked at the others. Swoosh! A rushing wind sound suddenly sounded in a split second after everyone was lost in their thoughts. Immediately, everyone's attention was drawn over. They were currently waiting for the victor of the final arena. The patience of most people had already been exhausted during these 2 months of waiting. Xiaoyan. A ray of light shot into the sky. Lin Dao's sharp eyes immediately recognized Xiaoyan. His voice was a little hoarse as he spoke. It's that fellow. Zhou Buyi's eyes were like lightning. He also discovered it in an instant. He clenched his teeth and his expression was ugly. Although he knew that Xiaoyan had some tricks up his sleeve, he did not expect that Lei Yunting would actually be defeated by the latter. Zhou Yuan raised his head and looked at Xiaoyan. That familiar face was the same as before. After so many years, he could still clearly remember it. Su Jiang moved his lips but didn't say anything. In his heart, he was filled with emotion. That guy whom he looked down upon in the past had now arrived here. Crack! Xiaoyan gently landed on the ground and ignored the gazes of the crowd. He went straight to Su Jiang's side and glanced at Mu Yuyang and the others. He raised his brows slightly and said in a suspicious tone, "Where is Wu Shaoqi?" The 3 people behind Su Jiang were Mu Yuyang, Lin Dao and Zhu Tianhou. Wu Shaoqi was nowhere to be seen. She lost, but she also dragged Wu Tian away. Can't you see Xing Chanyu's facial expression? Su Jiang said softly. He could tell that Xing Chanyu was angry. He was also quite satisfied with Wu Shaoqi's strength. After all, Wu Tiandu's strength was ranked at the top of Star Sky Academy. Similarly, he had completely broken Xing Chanyu's plan. The latter had thought that all 5 of them would arrive at the top of the mountain safely. Now, Wu Tiandu had been defeated, and Shang Shaoshan was seriously injured as well. I lost. Xiaoyan lowered his eyes when he heard this. He didn't say anything, but his heart was filled with regret. It was reasonable to say that Wu Shaoqi had obtained the inheritance of the Fire Emperor scripture. Even if she hadn't fully comprehended it, her strength shouldn't be underestimated. He didn't expect that both of them would suffer heavy injuries. While thinking, he couldn't help but look in the direction of the Star Sky Academy. Xing Chanyu's face was gloomy. He crossed his arms over his chest and said nothing. Behind him, there was only Kang Feng, Shang Hao, Shi Kanghai and the seriously injured Shang Shaoshan. You have done very well. You have exceeded my expectations. The next match will be the real battle. Su Jiang took a deep breath. His eyes were cold. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 447 Mystic Crystal Realm. 1, 2, 3, A total of 12 people have come up. 8 have been eliminated. The number is just right. Old man Chang narrowed his eyes and said with a smile. Originally, he thought that there would be 12 people coming up. Coincidentally, Wu Shaoqi and Wu Tiandu were both seriously injured and eliminated. Xiang Shaoshan and Xuan Qingyi, on the other hand, were equally matched, so the number was exactly the same. Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, the old man stretched out his hand, and a spiritual light surged in his palm. In the next moment, an extremely large black crystal space appeared out of thin air on the empty ground not far away. Standing outside, one could clearly see everything inside. Weng! The moment the black crystal space appeared, the entire sky trembled slightly. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, a pillar of light seemed to pierce through the heavens and the earth. It crashed down from the clouds, and a black crystalline light shot out from above the black crystal space. The two layers of light were quickly inlaid, producing a deafening buzzing sound. At the same time, the light pillar also connected the black crystal space to the sky above. This is the profound crystal realm, the place where you will fight in the end. The old man withdrew his arm. His expression seemed to be somewhat exhausted. It was obvious that releasing the profound crystal realm had consumed too much of his energy. The profound crystal realm was bestowed by the Star Domain Guardian. It is indestructible. It can be considered a unique spatial zone. Everything within it is material. Whether it is the density of the origin key or the gravity, it is 10 times denser than the outside. Most importantly, the time inside. It is 10 times slower than the outside. In other words, you won't be able to feel it inside. But outside, we can clearly see your every move. Ling Gu's voice was clear and clear, introducing the unusual aspects of the profound crystal realm. So, you can do whatever you want inside. Don't worry about destroying anything. Show me your full strength. You can actually control time. This is a technique that only the supreme experts at the supreme level can use. This profound crystal realm is a good thing. Tusk, if our sect possesses this technique and let our disciples cultivate inside, Before Ling Gu's voice faded, the surrounding experts had already exclaimed in astonishment. A burst of whispers broke out, and the gazes towards the profound crystal realm became a little more fervent. After all, to be able to slow down time by 10 times was simply too heaven-defying. In today's great world, even those true peak sects probably didn't have such a thing. Shaoyan looked at the profound crystal realm with a surprised expression, and his eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of shock. After all, even though the fighting monarch of the lower realm could create its own spatial zone, it was impossible to control the flow of time. It was unbelievable that an expert at the level of a supreme saint could actually control the flow of time. Not only Shaoyan, even Su Jiang and the other leaders of the academy had shocked expressions on their faces. This was the first time they had seen such a thing. Controlling the time. Humph. What that old fellow said was too simple. Even an ordinary supreme saint would not be able to comprehend such a heaven-defying law. No matter how powerful those Star Domain Guardians were, it was impossible for them to possess such a thing. There's a high chance that it was created by that Domain Lord when he was still alive. While Shaoyan was still in shock, the voice of Xiaoao suddenly resounded in his mind, and his tone was filled with amazement. The Supreme Saint, can he really control time? Shaoyan muttered to himself in his heart. No matter what, an intangible thing like time was different from space. Although it did exist, it was the most profound ability in the world. And it was precisely this ability that allowed even an utmost being saint to not be able to escape, thus disappearing into the long river of time. This, I am not sure either. In short, there is a strict distinction between saints. The level of the old fellow is merely the most ordinary tier. For example, the level of a domain lord, an even more powerful tier. Above this tier, there are soul demons. For those at the level of the 9 disciples. In short, it is very chaotic. He shook his head. Xiaoao said with a complicated expression. In his previous life, although he was also a holy beast that had shocked the various regions, it was not worth mentioning in the eyes of a true expert. He did not understand the secrets of the Supreme Saint level. There were still too many things that he did not understand. Xiaoyan nodded his head silently. That level was still too far away for him right now. What was pressing in his heart right now was how to get through the heart flame burning that had broken through to the emperor cultivation from the monarch emperor. Old man Chang's eyes swept across the crowd. When he noticed the greed, shock, and eagerness in everyone's eyes, he sneered in his heart. Without revealing anything, he looked at the light pillar that connected the sky and the profound crystal realm. With this, even if the heavenly sovereign expert came, it would be impossible for it to take away the profound crystal realm. Let me introduce the rules of the final battle. He raised his hand and stopped everyone's voices. Old man Chang looked at the 12 students in front of him. When everyone heard this, their spirits were lifted and they listened attentively. The last rule is that there are no rules. The moment the words left his mouth, everyone was stunned. Whispers broke out once again. Even Su Jiang, Xing Chanyu, and the others couldn't help but frown. Rules meant that there were no rules. What was this? The 12 of you can fight alone in the profound crystal realm, but you can also fight together. In short, the last person standing inside will be the final winner this time. The loser will be automatically eliminated from the profound crystal realm. According to the ranking of each of you who is eliminated, the corresponding academy will be ranked in the competition this time. Old man Chang talked and explained the corresponding rules in detail. For example, if a person is eliminated in the first place, then his ranking will be 12. His teammate will be eliminated in the 6th place, and his ranking will be 6th. The total score of this academy is 18. In other words, the lower the score, the more likely it is for the academy to get first place. What? As soon as Old Man Chang said those words, the expressions of the 4 leaders changed. This was the first time they had heard of such a rule. Ha ha ha, there's going to be a show to watch. With 12 people fighting together, the scene will probably be much livelier. That's right, this kind of rule also has its benefits. It can display one's ability to the greatest extent. Different from Su Jiang and the other 3, the experts in the outer perimeter were discussing amongst themselves. This was a scene that they were happy to see. Don't worry, this profound crystal realm only looks so big from the outside, but the space inside is very big. It's at least a quarter of the size of this island. It's enough for all of you to create a disturbance. Ling Gu laughed and said in a clear voice. Interesting. Lin Dao muttered to himself. Both of his eyes were flickering with a warm glow. This chaotic scene was suitable for his cold and bloodthirsty personality. What a joke. Are you treating us as spirit beasts to entertain others? Zhu Tianho's face was still slightly pale, but his spirit was much better. Gritting his teeth, he muttered to himself. For a moment, almost all of the 12 people had the doubts. The leaders of the 4 great academies were also deep in thought. As a result, they had no choice but to consider the problem of tactics. What's there to think about? I alone am enough to deal with a bunch of clowns. Kang Feng's expression was cold. He looked at Xing Chanyu, who was deep in thought. His voice was cold, but it was filled with disdain. A clown? Do you think you can fight everyone here by yourself? Xuan Qingyi's pretty face turned cold when she heard this. Her cold voice was filled with uncontrollable anger. Of course I can. Kang Feng's expression did not change. He looked at Xuan Qingyi coldly, causing the latter to feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. It was as if she was being stared at by a peerless monster. Her body trembled slightly. What a big tone. On the other side, Zhou Buyi's eyes were like a torch as he stared at Kang Feng and spoke word by word. Don't talk to me with this kind of tone. When you enter, you better pray for your own good. In Kang Feng's eyes, a wisp of black clear qi flashed and vanished, as if he was muttering to himself. That guy. Mu Yuyang's eyes were like swords as he looked at Kang Feng. He frowned slightly. From the latter, he seemed to have a strong sense of unease. I understand. Xiaoyan, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke in a soft voice. After that, he grinned. There was a solemn expression on his face. Yuv Mu, this guy should be where you are hiding. Chapter End. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 448. One person was eliminated. The top of the mountain was bustling with noise. After Old Man Chang introduced the so-called rules, the people who had been silent for a few days finally became lively. 4 hours later, all students will enter the profound crystal realm. Old Man Chang waved his sleeve and looked at the light pillar that connected the profound crystal realm and the sky above. His voice was like thunder that resounded in everyone's ears. Automatically eliminated. What if he dies? Just as the old man finished speaking, a cold voice suddenly sounded. It was not loud, but it instantly attracted everyone's attention. The speaker was Kang Feng. This young man from the star sky, he has a really bad temper. A white-haired old woman wearing a grey robe immediately saw the faint trace of murderous aura on Kang Feng's body. She immediately frowned and said. Before she finished speaking, the old lady only felt a chill all over her body. When she sensed a cold gaze looking at her, she could not help but tremble. Impossible. The power of the profound crystal realm is extremely powerful. After detecting the weakness of the life forms in the profound crystal realm, it will be sent out immediately. There will be no death in there. Old Man Chang's face was solemn, and his voice was cold as well. Humph. Upon hearing this, Kang Feng retracted his gaze from the white-haired old woman, and let out a cold snort. He didn't say anything else. Xing Chanyu furrowed his brows and couldn't help but look at Kang Feng. Clearly, he had also discovered that the latter was unusual. Elder Su, let's work together. While Xiaoyan and the others were silent, Yi Xuan suddenly walked over from the side. She brought along a fragrant wind and looked at Su Jiang gently. Su Jiang's face slightly twitched. He looked at Xiaoyan and the other 3 people and a trace of struggle flashed across his eyes. He still said in a deep voice, "Sorry, I can't make a decision on this kind of thing. In the final battle, I don't want to use any rules to restrict them." Yi Xuan heard this and nodded her head lightly. Disappointment quickly surged through her beautiful eyes. In the heart of this man in front of her, the matters of the academy were indeed the most important. Not far from him, Tang Hong's originally smiling face also became slightly solemn at this moment. Even the Lei Yunting that he thought the most highly of was eliminated. This kind of blow really made him suffer. I don't doubt it. I have nothing to say in Star Moon. In any case, just try your best. I know your character, but in Profound Crystal Realm, it's best if you don't make any rash moves. He sighed. Tang Hong's expression changed, and in the end, it turned into a helpless voice. I know. Zhou Buyi calmly nodded his head in agreement. The losses suffered by Nan Tian were undoubtedly disastrous. If he continued to act according to his character, he was afraid that he would bring unpredictable consequences to Nan Tian. Zhou Xingyu, who was standing at the side, only muttered to herself. Her big watery eyes looked in the direction of the Yunlo Academy. When she saw that Wu Shaoqi was not there, her brows slightly wrinkled and a trace of boredom flashed across her face. Glancing at Yi Xuan's back as she turned and left, the complicated look in Su Jiang's eyes only looked at Xiaoyan and the others and took a deep breath. There are 4 people here. Your performance is already good enough. Next, use your full strength. As for who you want to team up with, you can make your own decision inside. The 4 of them nodded. Zhu Tianhou took a deep look at Su Jiang. He didn't say anything. During the days he had spent with Su Jiang, he clearly understood Su Jiang's feelings towards the academy. For the sake of the academy, he could really give up everything, and it was precisely because of this that. Now that he thought back to the time when Su Jiang allowed Xiao Yi to kill him, although his heart was still filled with resentment, it was no longer as intense as before. In the next 4 hours, everyone was looking at the 12 students in the middle with great interest. Most of them were looking at the mysterious profound crystal realm, waiting for the start of the competition. In a hidden corner, Zhou Yuan's gaze was like a torch as it swept across all the students. His expression was also slightly grave. The strength of these students on the surface was not inferior to his. If he were to attack, he did not know that he would be able to reach that final step. Time is up. All students, enter the profound crystal realm. Just as the time was up, Ling Gu's voice immediately sounded. It was just like the spiritual voice of an empty valley, suppressing everyone's voices. In this world, there was only this voice drifting about. Hua, as if the fuse had been ignited, everyone's nature once again soared. They all cast their gazes towards the 12 people in the center of the arena. The gazes weren't bad, so they could naturally see how outstanding these students were. Those who were able to take the lead among them, if they were able to be roped into their own sects, their future potential would definitely be immeasurable. Ka ka ka. At the same time, the profound crystal realm also rumbled. The crystal surface rippled like ripples, and it looked quite beautiful. Boom! The instant the profound crystal realm was opened, a figure rushed out like a ray of light and directly entered the profound crystal realm. The other 3 students from the Star Sky Academy did not hesitate when they saw Kang Feng enter. They also clearly understood in their hearts that the other 3 academies would most likely join forces to deal with them. If it was not for Kang Feng, with their strength, they really weren't a match for all of them. Let's go. Mu Yuyang stretched his body and let out cracking sounds of bones colliding. He nodded slightly, then his body moved like the wind, speeding towards profound crystal realm. Behind him, Xiaoyan, Lin Dao, and Zhu Tianhou did not slow down at all. Under everyone's gaze, they entered profound crystal realm one after another. Kiara, Qingyi, this time the Glaze Academy will depend on the 2 of you. Kiara, your ability is very special. You don't need to deliberately suppress it. Just release it. Yi Xuan touched Kiara's head and said gently, Teacher Yi, I know. Kiara lowered her head and answered softly. After hearing Yi Xuan's words, there was a faint trace of excitement in her eyes. Don't worry, we will definitely do our best. Xuan Qingyi clenched her fist and her 5 fingers were slender. After she finished speaking, under Yi Xuan's gratified gaze, Xuan Qingyi and Kiara also entered the profound crystal realm. In just a moment, the 12 students all entered. The surrounding people gathered around and looked at the profound crystal realm seriously. Outside, they could clearly see everything inside, but inside, they could not see the outside. This was also very beneficial to the students fighting and would not be disturbed by external factors. Hey, why aren't these students moving? Seeing the 12 people who had entered the profound crystal realm whispering to each other but voice out in doubt. Are all the people from the Sky Cloud Martial School so brainless? We didn't even think about it. What we saw was a space that was hundreds of meters in size, but the space inside was extremely vast. They didn't seem to be moving, but they might have already flown inside. I don't know where they are. Elder Jiang has also said before that it's beneficial for us to observe. A mocking voice sounded after his voice sounded. It was the expert from another sect who had a conflict with the former. His words immediately caused everyone to laugh. The face of the middle-aged man, who had spoken earlier, involuntarily turned red. He glared at the former and clenched his teeth. He did not say anything. Within the profound crystal realm, what appeared in front of everyone was a vast land that stretched as far as the eye could see. Looking up, what they saw was a stretch of yellow sand that covered 1,000 miles of land. Xiaoyan, who had already experienced the spatial zone, was not surprised when he saw this. He quickly identified his direction and left with Mu Yuyang and the others. Several people from the other academies also left after being shocked. Here, the battle was not a close combat, but an ambush and attack. If we gather together, even if the 4 people from the Star Sky Academy come together, they won't be able to do anything to us in a short period of time. Next, we need to find the right time and attack together with all 4 of us. We need to eliminate the people from the Star Sky Academy who have fallen out of the list as soon as possible. Mu Yuyang's voice rang in their ears, and they nodded in agreement. No matter what, the Star Sky Academy was a bone that was hard to chew. This was the only way to get rid of it. While they were flying, a buzzing sound was suddenly heard from the entire spatial zone. Before anyone could react, Old Man Chang's voice had already resounded throughout the entire profound crystal realm. Kang Feng of Star Sky Academy, eliminate Xuan Qingyi of Glaze Academy. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 449. Spatial Origin Key. What? As soon as Old Man Chang's words left his mouth, it instantly caused a huge commotion in the profound crystal realm. Not only Xiaoyan, even Ma Huyang and Lindao were shocked. Obviously, they didn't expect Kang Feng to be so fierce. The two men from the Glaze Academy only arrived a few minutes later than Xiaoyan and the other three men. Even if the four men from the Star Sky Academy came together, they wouldn't be able to eliminate Xuan Qingyi so quickly. In the Glaze Academy, Xuan Qingyi wasn't any weaker than Ma Huyang in the Yunlo. Zhou Buyi's status in the southern domain and his strength were among the top of all the participants in the competition. It was really out of everyone's expectation that he would be eliminated as soon as he entered the competition. Outside the profound crystal realm, the onlookers were also shocked. From their observations, Xuan Qingyi and Kiara were suddenly attacked by Kang Feng the moment they entered the profound crystal realm. In a rush, Kiara and Xuan Qingyi did not even make any preparations. They could only release Origin Kiss to cover their entire bodies before they saw Kang Feng's figure flash. In a place like Profound Crystal Realm where the flow of time was 10 times slower, everyone could only see an afterimage flash past. In the next moment, Kang Feng appeared beside Xuan Qingyi. In an instant, it was as if he had struck out hundreds and thousands of palm strikes. The light in the palms shone brightly. In the end, it turned into streams of dense black clear qi and blasted into Xuan Qingyi's body. The latter's delicate body trembled and she fainted in an instant. She was transported out of the profound crystal realm. Qingyi, Yi Xuan's expression changed slightly. With a flash, she arrived in midair and hugged Xuan Qingyi in her arms. When she saw the latter's pale face, she extended her trembling hand to touch her chest. When she sensed that the life force within her body was almost completely cut off, disbelief immediately appeared on her beautiful face. Clenching her teeth, Yi Xuan gently bit her red lips and returned to her original spot without saying anything. With a flip of her hand, a purple-colored medicine pill that emitted a strange fragrance appeared in her palm. She carefully stuffed it into Xuan Qingyi's mouth. Jade Spirit Profound Yin Pill. Su Jiang, who was standing by the side, immediately recognized the medicine pill that Yi Xuan had taken out. He frowned. He muttered to himself. This medicine pill was a genuine 6th grade medicine pill. It was considered to be at the peak of Tier 6. It had an extremely strong healing effect when one's life force was seriously damaged. Even for people of their strength, it was useful. However, the side effects were also extremely great. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one would consume this medicine pill. My injuries are too severe. Yi Xuan did not raise her head and seemed to be talking to herself. Su Jiang heard it very clearly and his eyes became even more shocked. Yi Xuan had told him about Xuan Qingyi's strength these few days. She had said that she had the strength to fight even a peak of Monic Emperor warrior. Even if Kang Feng suddenly attacked, he would not be able to injure Xuan Qingyi in an instant. That kid is strange. Yi Xuan's beautiful eyes were slightly red. She gritted her teeth and looked at Xuan Qingyi's painful face. Her heart seemed to be bleeding. Su Jiang raised his eyes and looked over. Although Xing Chanyu was pleasantly surprised in the distance, it could be seen that the latter was also extremely shocked by Kang Feng's sudden display of strength. What a ruthless kid. His timing is perfect. This kind of combat awareness is not inferior to an emperor cultivation warrior's. Among the crowd, there were many experts with sharp eyes. However, they were also shocked by Kang Feng's fierce attack. They were all amazed, and Zhou Yuan, who was standing in the distance, furrowed his brows. Even though he had combat experience that most of the people present had never had before, he was still amazed by Kang Feng. The flow of time in profound crystal realm was 10 times slower than in the outside world. Therefore, everyone in profound crystal realm could clearly see the movements of the people outside, but the speed that Kang Feng displayed just now still shocked many people. While everyone was exclaiming about Kang Feng's strength, someone looked at the profound crystal realm and exclaimed, instantly attracting everyone's attention. In the profound crystal realm, Kang Feng had a surprised expression on his face. The black key in his palm was fluctuating, and he was looking forward with a cold gaze. There, Kiara was gasping for breath. On her delicate face, there was a determined look. Extending her arms, the origin key around her. It was an extremely unusual grayish color. The grayish origin energy transformed into numerous ripples. It enveloped him and actually temporarily blocked Kang Feng's black clear key. This is a spatial origin key. A black light flashed across Kang Feng's eyes. He mumbled to himself and frowned. Then, he sneered. Although it is powerful, the user's ability is still too weak. There is nothing to be afraid of. Whoosh! He gently raised one hand and the origin key that filled the sky crazily surged over. It was as if 10,000 Buddhas were roaring towards the sect from all directions. Within Kang Feng's palm, a frightening black clear key was like a deep space as it slowly flowed and absorbed all the origin kiss that had rushed over. In the blink of an eye, an indescribable black light blade had already formed in his palm. This black color was so deep that it penetrated one's bones. At a glance, one's heart trembled. The enormous power contained within it caused the hearts of Shang Shaoshan and the others, who were standing not far away, to tremble. What kind of technique is this? A look of shock appeared in Shang Hao's eyes as he muttered to himself. In his impression, although Kang Feng's strength was amazing, he had never grasped such an amazing mnemonic skill before. He even had a strong feeling about it. If he was hit by this black light blade, he would most likely die instantly. Shi Kanghai was also trembling with fear. He had never felt this kind of power from any of the Imperial Dao elders in the academy. Shang Shaoshan's expression was solemn, and he clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, what he thought of was not the academy. If Kang Feng really had such strength, to the Shang clan, he would be a huge threat in the future. Although the Shang clan had the tyrant Heavenly King body, Shang Yu, the latter was in the battle domain. He had never cared about the matters of his family, and Kang Feng had suddenly emerged from nowhere. In the long run, it was not a good thing. Kiara raised her head and looked over. When she saw that Kang Feng was ready to use the mnemonic skill, her already pale face became even more serious. She gently bit her teeth and her 10 fingers quickly formed a seal. The gray origin key that surrounded her body seemed to have a spirit of its own as it wrapped around her delicate body layer by layer. If one looked closely, they would find that she had actually disappeared from where she stood. Disappeared. It didn't disappear at the maximum speed, it really disappeared into the spatial zone. How is that possible? She's only a monarch, emperor level. How could she possibly comprehend the spatial force that only heavenly sovereign expert can master? Everyone in the outside world was shocked when they saw Kiara disappear. Their voices were filled with disbelief, and they were even more shocked than when they saw Kang Feng's strength. This is her ability. Su Jiang was also stunned. He said with a shocked expression. That's right, a spatial origin key is rare even in the ancient era. Yi Xuan carried Xuan Qingyi with a calm expression. They were outside the profound crystal realm, so they naturally couldn't feel the sharpness of the black light blade unleashed by Kang Feng. Spatial attribute. Unbelievable. Su Jiang nodded silently. Everyone's origin key had different attributes. The most common ones were the 5 elemental origin kiss. Lightning, ice, and other attributes were rare. It was also very common for everyone. As for the spatial attribute origin key, it was extremely rare to possess such an origin key. Even if one had not reached the heavenly sovereign, they would still have more or less grasped some spatial energy. It was enough to easily defeat experts of the same level. In the distance, Old Man Chang and the others had stunned expressions. It was a long time ago before they slowly exhaled. Their expressions were complicated, and it was unknown what they were thinking. Using spatial strength in front of me is extremely laughable. Kang Feng's expression did not change when he saw Kiara disappear. He did not care about it at all. The corner of his mouth lifted into a cold smile. Immediately, his eyes narrowed. Black clear ki surged within his eyes, forming a black spiraling black shadow that seemed to have shattered the void. I've found you. Kang Feng smiled lightly. He stretched out his palm and waved it. A whistling sound of wind was heard from his palm, and a black blade of light was about to be swung out. All of a sudden, Kang Feng frowned, and his body swayed. In the next moment, a long spear ruthlessly pierced through his chest. Lindao stepped on the empty air and slowly appeared behind him. Swoosh! Kang Feng, who had been pierced by the long spear, trembled. After which, he turned into a shadow and disappeared. Lindao raised his eyebrows and the air under his feet shattered. He had already swiftly dodged. Are you from the Yunlo Academy so impatient to die? When Lindao returned to the middle of Shaoyan and the others, the void in the distance shook. Kang Feng's figure slowly appeared. At the same time, his cold voice echoed. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 450. Exposing all of his ultimate techniques. Be careful, this guy is too strong. Ma Huyang's eyes were full of vigilance. The heavenly net sword was already in his hand, and he reminded Lindao in a low voice. Even with Lindao's speed, he was still discovered by Kang Feng. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the latter's speed was. Shaoyan and the others had grave expressions on their faces. They nodded and did not speak when they heard this. After Kang Feng eliminated Xuan Qingyi in an instant just now, everyone made a prompt decision and gave up on their original plan. They decided to join hands to deal with Kang Feng. If they were to be defeated by the latter one by one, it was likely that they would only end up losing. Crack! The sound of space shattering was transmitted from a short distance away. Kiara's pretty face appeared pale as she appeared. She looked gratefully at Shaoyan and the rest. She merely hesitated for a moment before her body moved and arrived beside Shaoyan and the rest. Her face instantly turned red when she saw the gazes of these people. Immediately, her expression became firm as she looked at Kang Feng. Seeing this, Kang Feng's face turned red. The black silhouette in his eyes moved and smiled coldly. Immediately after, he turned his head and looked at a place not far away from him. He smiled faintly and said, "They're all here." As soon as his voice faded, two flowing lights rushed over and steadily stopped beside Shaoyan and the other three. They were Zhou Buyi and Zhou Exingyu, who had left earlier. You also have a sense of crisis. Ma Huyang glanced at Zhou Buyi indifferently. He was not the least bit surprised by the latter's arrival. What else can I do? Waiting to be eliminated. Zhou Buyi's tone was calm, but his eyes were fixed on Kang Feng. He could feel a strong pressure coming from Kang Feng's body. Good, good, good. Seeing that everyone had gathered, Kang Feng suddenly burst into a wild laughter. His black hair was fluttering in the wind, and the black key in his eyes was circulating crazily. He threw his head back and laughed, causing the surrounding air to crack. Join forces. Do you think we don't have anyone? Shi Kanghai sneered. His voice echoed like thunder. In a few blinks, he appeared beside Kang Feng, facing so many people. He felt a trace of wild joy in his heart. Shang Hao and Shang Shaoshan stepped forward with gloomy expressions. Although both of them had a conflict with Kang Feng's sudden increase in strength, under the current circumstances, they could only attack. What do you have in mind? The origin key around Zhou Buyi's body vibrated, emitting a powerful key. He turned to Ma Huyang and asked. On Shaoyan's side, Ma Huyang was obviously the leader of the group. Among them, only he and Ma Huyang had the same strength. They're just a bunch of ants. Before Ma Huyang could say anything, Kang Feng shouted from afar. He didn't care about Shang Hao and the other two. He rushed towards the group of people with an imposing manner, as if he was going to break the blue sky. Let's follow the previous plan. Lindao, bring Xiaoyan and the others to deal with Shang Hao and the other two. Zhou Buyi, you and I will work together to deal with Kang Feng. At this critical moment, Ma Huyang suddenly cried out. At the same time, his body had already rushed forward. The heavenly net sword in his hand instantly danced with tens of thousands of long arcs. There was a green lotus on each of the long arcs. Each lotus was budding and seemed to contain an endless amount of power. Green lotus sword truth. This guy actually succeeded in cultivating it. Zhou Buyi's expression turned slightly serious. He had secretly asked around about Ma Huyang's trump card. Green Lotus Sword Dao was the monic skill that the great elder of Yunlo Academy had personally bestowed upon Ma Huyang. Its grade was extremely high, and it had already reached the mid-grade monic arts. Great Zhou Heavenly Dao Seal. Zhou Buyi's movements weren't slow at all. His body was like a dragon, and his joints were cracking. As he flipped his 10 fingers, the origin key around his body shot up into the sky. In the blink of an eye, a huge square seal had formed above his head. The huge seal was a dark gray color, and it was mysterious and unpredictable. It was enough to suppress all 4 directions. It was the supreme cultivation technique of the Zhou clan, the monic arts that was derived from the great Zhou evolution art. Swoosh! The moment the two of them moved, Lindao's sword-shaped eyebrows stood straight, and the air under his feet shattered. He pointed his finger at the sky, and with a slight sway of his body, he had already arrived in front of Shang Hao. The Imperial Dragon Point Blue Spear transformed into an azure dragon, and the tip of the spear let out a wild roar. It pierced through the space, and pierced towards Shang Hao's chest. Although Zhu Tianho's speed was far slower than Lindao's, he was still not satisfied. A flame pattern appeared between his brows. The fire source in the air seemed to have surrendered to an emperor. It formed a flaming bridge in the air, and the flames in his hand roared. It was as if he was holding 2 fire dragons, and he attacked Shi Kanghai. Xiaoyan's eyes sparkled. He did not attack directly like Lindao and Zhu Tianho. His glabella slightly bulged, and a majestic soul force spread out, following Lindao's attack towards Shang Hao. Such a chaotic scene, a soul attack that was caught off guard, was obviously much stronger than the monic skill. Zhou Exingyu, who was standing aside, hesitated for a moment. Starlight surged around her like a shooting star as she rushed towards Shang Shaoshan. Along the way, the starlight shattered and the sky was filled with multicolored light. It was the monic skill of the Great Circulatory Cycle Revolution. It was called the Great Circulatory Cycle Stellar Splitter. It was the only monic skill among the 10 monic skill that needed to absorb starlight to cultivate, and it was ranked at the peak of the low-grade monic arts. Kiara was standing at the side. When she saw Xiaoyan's eyes were closed and not moving at all, a bright light flashed in her eyes. She had already understood something. Immediately, a gray-colored origin key lingered around her body. Her body had already disappeared from where she was standing. 1000-blade fierce light. The great flame explosion. 9 breaks of surging waves. Facing Lindao and the other 2 men's aggressive attacks, Shang Hao and the other 2 men were shocked. All of them unleashed their monic skill, which was used by Shang Hao and Shang Shaoshan. It was the ultimate skill of Shang clan, and Shi Kanghai. As the son of the master of Surging Waves Prefecture, he naturally had an extraordinary skill as well. As his palms struck out, endless waves of water poured down from the 9 heavens. It blocked Zhu Tianho's fiery bridge and welcomed the roaring fire dragon. Outside the profound crystal realm, everyone was watching the battle in the inner world with nervous expressions. No one would have thought that the final battle would break out so quickly. With the help of the 10 times slower time in the inner world, everyone could clearly see their attacks and techniques. At the same time, it also shocked everyone. 2 young men from the Zhou clan and 2 young men from the Shang clan. They're worthy of being called the disciples of the major families. They're able to master the ultimate techniques of their families so well. An expert saw through the monic skill that these people were using with a single glance, and exclaimed in amazement. Not bad, even though they're able to use the monic skill in a short period of time. There are still flaws, but it's already very difficult for someone at the monic emperor to have such strength. The experts by the side sighed with emotion. With their eyesight, they were naturally able to see the flaws in their attacks. What is Xiaoyan doing? Su Xiang's eyes were fixed on the inner world. At this critical moment when Ma Huyang and Zhou Buyi were fighting Kang Feng together, Xiaoyan's actions had turned into countless questions in his mind. Has Kang Feng gone mad? Xing Chanyu was also stunned. He knew Kang Feng's strength very well. Although he was undeniably strong, it was still not enough to fight with Ma Huyang and Zhou Buyi, the two strongest people in the other academies. Rumble. The grayish-black large seal, which was wrapped by thousands of long arcs, shot towards Kang Feng. Countless budding green lotuses slowly rotated around the large seal. They were filled with a different kind of spirituality and had a pleasing beauty. However, under the beauty, it was a terrifying power that shook one's soul. Fortunately, I have chosen this strongest body. This attack should be able to withstand it. Kang Feng rushed over without slowing down. When he saw the joint attack of Zhou Buyi and Ma Huyang, he suddenly muttered to himself and shouted. Black clear ki surged around his body and shattered the surrounding space. The sound of cracking could be heard without an end. Bursting stream burial. Endless origin kiss surged out from the space and gathered on Kang Feng's right fist. They seemed to have transformed into layers of quicksand that shook the heavens and the earth. They swept down and struck the huge seal with an unstoppable force. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.